And it's just a presence that a father brings to a home that a mother that just doesn't have.
Yes. Yes.
And it's a presence that a father brings to his son that a mother just can't bring.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And it's not that she can't teach him what dad teaches him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the presence of him, the essence of him being a man, doing what he's supposed to do, taking care of his family. He's coming home and you see this every day, day in, day out.
Mm-hmm.
You see? It had an effect on me. You know, it had an effect on all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So when he came home, we all felt safe.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Even though mom had been there all day long,
Mm-hmm.
feeding us, talking to us, reading the Bible to us and everything, but when dad came home, it was just a whole different feel altogether.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, how it negatively affected me is that, like I was saying, he didn't spend very much time with us.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest time that I had with my father was for 5 minutes.
Wow.
And what happened in those 5 minutes? We just threw the football back and forth to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That was the greatest 5 minutes that I've ever spent with my dad, just throwing the football.
What did that do for you?
That was just...
It was just his time. It was his time.
It just blew me away, because Dad never came out and did anything with us.
Mm.
Took us places. I mean, we went to Disney World, Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
He took us on many trips,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't interact with us.
So he was emotionally detached.
Yeah.
Okay.
And later on in life, I mean, growing up, teenage years and things like that, I began to develop some bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older, and God put another spiritual mentor in my life, Pastor Lowry,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't blame my father anymore, because I had to look past him to his past.
Okay. Okay.
What was his upbringing like?
Mm-hmm.
He was raised by his mother, because my grandfather passed away when he was very young.
Okay.
So I'm saying to myself, okay, I got a mentor here though, and he's strengthening me
Mm-hmm.
with character,
Mm-hmm.
you see. But Dad didn't have the time to do that. He's tired, you see. But looking at his past, I couldn't judge him anymore. I couldn't hold him to that
Mm. That's key.
because of how he was raised.
Mm-hmm.
I could have carried that anger and said, well, he never do this, he do that, da 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 da. And I was angry for a bit in my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older and wiser, I had to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, okay, I need to do better with my children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It needs to stop with me,
Mm-hmm.
or start with me.
Mm-hmm.
So when my children came, I stayed in their lives. My son was playing football, and it seemed like every day for high school, and the teachers and principals, you know, they were amazed. Why? Because every day at study hall, I was there
Mm-hmm.
before they got in there, because I knew what the struggles were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I knew about peer pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You get it in, you joke around, you don't do your work,
Mhm.
but yet you want to play football.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I stopped that
Mm-hmm.
by being there.
By being there. Mm-hmm. You know, Dave, real quick, I want you to chime in, because I know your experience was your dad was a part of your life, but he was emotionally detached. He wasn't, he didn't do, you know, in your words, he didn't do anything for you. So let's talk about that period in your life where, you know, what were your raw emotions? How did you handle it? How did you process
Well,
it?
you know what? To be totally honest, I'm sitting here listening to these gentlemen, and a lot of what I can relate, a lot of what Brian has said. But in all fairness and in all honesty, I never cared.
Mm.
I never cared if he was there, because my father was always around. He wasn't in the home, he was always around. He was always a phone call away. I could always go over to my grandmother's house or something and see my father. So he was always around, but my father was a functioning heroin addict.
Okay.
And he dropped out of school in the 6th grade.
Okay.
So he was, and my parents had me really young. My mother was 17. They both were 17 when they had me. And my grandfather, my mother's father, had 5 daughters. Didn't have any sons.
So you was.
So I was named after my grandfather on my mother's side because I was basically his first child.
Okay.
But unfortunately, he died of cancer when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
So he never really got to see me do my thing. I mean, I know he would have been proud of me playing football and basketball and getting straight A's in school and all the things that I was able to do and able to accomplish, but he was taken away from me so early. But with regards to my father not being there, I never cared.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care because I was going to do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to do my thing. I wasn't going to let anybody stop me. And I had mentors. I had uncles.
Mm-hmm.
My coaches taught me things when I was in the 9th and 10th grade that I apply to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Dress for success. You know, if you are going to be who your circle is.
Yeah.
If you hang with
Yeah.
5 millionaires, you're going to be the 6th.
Yeah.
If you hang with 5 thugs, you're going to be the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
So who you going to hang with? And these are things that they taught me
Mm-hmm.
that I then taught the guys that played for me. And the number one reason why I got into coaching, and I coached 12, 13 years, was because I wanted to mentor and give back to the kids. But getting back to my story, you know, with regards to my father, I honestly just didn't care. Now, when I became a grown man in my 30s, I'm married, I got my first son, I got another child, I was always determined not to allow what happened to me and my insecurities to happen to my children. Because my thing was always money. I mean, we struggled. I mean, I had 4 pair of jeans and 8 shirts, and I'm mixing and matching. You know, I'm mixing and matching. I mean, you know, because so my thing is, I'm gonna get out here and grind, and then you know that leads to low self-esteem.
Yeah.
You know, scared to talk to girls and all that other stuff. You know, just not thinking that you're worthy.
Because we taught that you look at his shoes to see.
Uh-huh.
And if the shoes in good condition, okay. And if the fingernails dirty, then okay.
Right. And my mother absolutely did the absolute best she could.
Mhm.
Absolute best she could. And when I got in high school, started playing in bands, you know, in the 80s, you know, you playing in the band, y'all get $50 a show. That's 3 shows. That's $150 a week.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, I'm gonna pay the phone bill. The phone bill back in the 80s was $50 for the whole month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mom, I'm gonna take care of electric bill, $70, right? She didn't have to worry about getting my haircuts or buying me shoes and stuff like that because I was making a little bit of money, you know, in the bands, still keeping my eye on the prize because I knew I was going to always go to college. So as I became a man, my thing was, my kids are not going to have to struggle.
Yeah.
You know, my buying my son Jordans, and I mean, he didn't even want them. He was like, I'll just take those Vans. You know, he was down Waldorf, you know, so that's what I'm living. So they down there, you know, they wasn't really tripping, you know, but it was me. It was me. So finally, I came to the realization. I said, you know what? It's not my father's fault. He just don't know no better. He had the drug dependency, but he just didn't know any better. So I'm living with my family in a nice home down in Waldorf. I invite my father and his new wife and my little brothers over, and at that point, try to forge a relationship. Try to build a bond with Dad. Let's go to the Wizards game. I got tickets. You know, Dad, let's go to the Redskin game. I mean, trying to extend the olive branch, even though I did harbor some resentment, I was able to put it in the past. I was going to let it go. But
so let me ask you this. When you say that you didn't care, was that your way in dealing with your pain?
I haven't recognized if I had pain or not. Because I was so focused in school, so focused in sports, hanging with my friends, picking up tidbits of information from my coaches, from my best friend's father, who would always sit us down and school us and stuff like that. So I really didn't feel like I was missing anything. I really didn't feel like I was missing anything.
You had your grandfather too.
Right. No, well, my grandfather, he had passed.
Okay.
So and that was the pivotal moment in my life. Because if my grandfather had never died, I'd have been a whole different person. Because I would have had that. Because my grandfather had 5 daughters, and he ran his house with an iron fist. My grandfather was a man's man, and I've always been one to listen. I've always been one to obey. So when he would have been teaching me stuff, you know, going through high school, going through college, I would have been picking up stuff, and you know, with him being taken away from me so early, I never got to get the knowledge about being a black man, about being a father that he had. He had. So fast forward, you know, again, my father, his sickness reared its ugly head. Came into my house one day and broke into my house. My father did that.
Wow.
So the last words I said to my father, this was Martin Luther King's birthday back in 2004, is, the next time I see you, I'm going to kill you. Because just because I wear a shirt and tie to work, I ain't no punk. You ain't gonna run up in my house, and I know you ran up in my house taking stuff. So, I mean, I had to go to counseling. I had to go, my pastor, he had to counsel me because I was gonna hurt him. So 3 years ago, the day before Thanksgiving, my father's in South Carolina, my grandmother, he suffered a massive heart attack and he died. And I can say that Mark is a better man than me because I wasn't stepping foot at the funeral. They called me, can you help pay for money? I had a pocket full of money. I'm not giving a dime. It's not my, I don't care. I'm not coming to the funeral, don't say nothing. I never uttered another word to him. And everybody says, you gotta forgive, you gotta forgive, you gotta forgive. And I'm working on that because the type of guy that I am, I'll forgive you, but you gotta ask for my forgiveness. You know, I'm just wired in such a way, whereas I just can't, you know, I mean, I can't, I'm not the turn the other cheek type of guy. So you got me, you gotta pass, because I didn't come over there and handle my business, and you just do your thing over there, I do my thing over here.
So can I ask you something?
Absolutely.
So you said that you're the kind of guy that you gotta ask for your forgiveness for you to forgive. So how does it make you feel knowing that your dad passed away and he'll never be able to ask you to forgive him?
I felt nothing. I feel nothing. I'm good. I am focused on being a better father than my father was to me. I just totally should focus. I'm not gonna sit back and cry, he wasn't there, he did this, he did that. I'm just a guy that just rolled with the punches. I feel nothing.
Will you be able to forgive him one day?
That's a good question. I mean, it's not like I'm harboring any ill feelings or, you know, I'm glad he's in hell. It's nothing like that. It ain't nothing like that. It's just, things are just, you know, things are just what they are. I mean, you know, I've moved on. You know, I've reconciled it, man. I just, his dysfunction just makes me more determined to be a better father. That's all it is. So what I learned from him was what not to do to your children. And just like Brian, when my son said he wanted to sing, after he got his grades together, it ain't like Westlake was that hard anyway. I'm sorry. But after he got his grades together, we went in full board, you know, and we worked with Kevin and Night Flight. We did some stuff over there. So, you know, with my other son.
Well, wait, before you get into that, let me ask Mark a question. So, and I want to kind of stay right here because everybody had a chance to have like their moment of clarity. So for you, Mark, you know, the feelings that you had to deal with growing up, you talked about when you went to your dad's funeral, and you had that moment where you were able to release all of the things that you felt for him. Was it because you took into account that, you know, the possibilities of his growing up? Did you know anything about his life to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to blame him for how he handled me?
Well, I mean, what's interesting as I answer that is, you know, you hear, or I remember reading an article about how most young men who don't have their fathers in their life, their fathers wasn't in their life.
Mhm.
And that's interesting to me because kind of how we said, if we were hurt by, you know, I was hurt by my father not being in my life, I'm like, I'm not going to do that to my children.
Mhm.
I don't want to do that, but yet it happened. And so for me, it was like when I found out my father didn't have his dad in his life, that was how I reconciled and said that's probably why he did me the way, you know, his dad did him, because that's all he knew.
Mhm.
So he grew up, you know, with his father not there. So that's what I came to terms with. I mean, I would never know his actual reason because I never got to sit with him and talk and say, hey, what's going on?
Mhm.
What's happening? But yeah.
But that's an important piece of information. That's an important piece of history for you to understand. Now, I have a question for all three of you because what I find very interesting in the dynamics of the three of you all's story, and you all have said the same thing, which Charlie and Roland, you will be able to attest to last week. The dynamics with our guests was that they found themselves doing what they said they would never do. So I know that you don't have children right now, Mark. You don't have any kids right now. But do you see certain aspects of your life that you think resemble patterns of your dad, or at some point in your life, maybe not right now, because I know you have some really strong male mentors in your life right now, but before you got to that point, do you see any part of your life that resembled from what you knew of your dad, the little pieces that you knew of him, or was it pieces of you that began to manifest themselves that you began to say, man, where did this come from? You know, that could be a part of your dad, but you never knew.
It was more the latter. It was more
Okay.
the latter. Like a lot of stuff, like whether it was actions or how things were going in my life, I started, you know, asking myself, like, why am I like this? Why do I make these decisions? Why am I doing this? And then I, you know, found out it could have been because my father was like this. You know, those were his struggles, you know. Because I believe in generational curses, but I believe they can be broken too.
Yeah.
So a lot of actions that I have may have came from what my father had done in his past. So,
David, do you see, or did you at any point in your life have any moments that your life actually resembled parts of your dad's life? Or do you see yourself maybe repeating some of the things that he may have done in the lives of your children?
No,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay.
Just, again, polar opposites.
Mhm.
I more so relate to my grandfather
Mhm.
than my father.
Okay.
And I try to emulate how he raised 5 daughters in the 50s and 60s, and how he worked for 30 years, and how he stayed married to my grandmother for such a long time. And, you know, with them it was till death do they part. So I strive to be like him. Now, I will say, I find myself, when I'm thrust in a situation, instead of saying, well, what would my father do, or, you know, my father would have done this or that, I'm like, what would my grandfather have done?
Okay.
How would he have handled this situation? You know, how did he, you know, deal with certain things? And I find myself trying to relate to him because he did it the way that I want to do it,
Mhm.
as opposed to how my father did it.
Okay.
So I don't, you know, I can't really relate to
Okay.
you know, no parts of it.
Okay.
One thing I can say is this, as a male, and I'm pretty sure all of us can agree with this, the male that you, the male that has the greatest impact that you've met, you usually try to migrate towards how they are.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And that also happens at different stages. You have that impact from that male up to the age, let's say 4 or 5, and then it shifts again. You have another impact from school age, and another as a teenager. And if you're fortunate enough to have that same male presence, that same male individual through each one of those stages. And then it takes group, like your grandfather did with you.
Yeah, because I find that interesting that he passed away when you were 9, but just from hearing you talk, you know, he really had an impact on